Everybody, welcome to the Roberson Mill. Well, thank you for coming. As you've seen, we're in the process of trying to renovate and restore the mill, get it operational. Our hope is to get a water wheel and get the mill moving, actually grind grain. And through the Friends of the Roberson Mill Foundation, we're hoping that you guys will help us make that dream come true. So my name is Jeff. My background is in historic preservation. I'm helping restore the mill. I'm also on the board, and I've worked on grist mills for a number of years in my life. So if you're a miller, please correct me. If you see I'm saying something that's incorrect, I don't mind being corrected. My background is in mills dating into the late 1700s and early 1800s. So in the case of this mill, it's a merchant class grist mill. It's designed by a guy named Oliver Evans. Oliver Evans was the father of milling technology. And so just about every mill you go in the country, I don't care where you go, down south, up north, they basically all have the same platform, the same outline, the same foundation plans, doors in the same places, windows in the same places, and equipment in the same places. In this mill, a farmer would probably come through one of these doors. I'm guessing this one would come over here to an area that's called the garner. The garner is a grain bin. The insides of it slope, it's a triangle, and they'd use a lot of the simple machines of the Greeks to move grain and in the process of milling through every floor of the building. It goes as far back as the Archimedes screw. They use the same kind of equipment. Today, that farmer would bring the grain in. It would be weighed. There's a scale behind the door over there. Or if it needed to be shelled, that would be an extra fee. They put that grain into here. The slope sides in here would bring the grain into the base of the elevator system. This is a continuous belt that goes from this floor to the third floor, and it's got cups. Those cups would come and scoop up the grain, take it all the way upstairs. Then it would drop into another garner, another holding bin, and then from there, it would be distributed to what you see, the triangular piece over there on the millstone. That's called a hopper. This was pretty much the command center for a miller. Here, he could control the feed going into the eye of the stone. You can see that thing moving. That's called the shoe. So there's the hopper. It sits on the horse. This is the stone hoop. And we're rebuilding a lot of this equipment. From here, once it was ground, centrifugal force is throwing it to the outside of the stone. It would go through another chute. It would go here, then turn to the base of the elevator. There, those cups would scoop up that grain again, take it all the way upstairs. That continuous belt has a pulley here, a pulley at the very top floor. It would then dump in through another chute, and it would go to any number of different types of machines that would sift it. Upstairs, we have 2 bolting chests, okay? I've been to mills all over the country, even Canada. It's unusual to find a mill of this size, small community, that would have 2 bolting chests. The bolting chests are big reels. They're octagonal. They were covered in silk. Again, an inclined plane. They're at a slight angle. And as that turned, belt driven by this shaft right here, it's attached to a big flywheel. That flywheel had a belt. It went to other pulleys that would turn that reel. And as that reel turned, what would happen is the very finest flour, or cornmeal in this case, would drop here. The center one had 3 over here. You would have grits, and then the end would have chaff. Okay, that would be the animal feed. They would make chop, any number of things. Next grade might have some bran in it, might have some germ in it. All the things we look for today, they got rid of back in those days. White flour is what they wanted. In larger merchant class grist mills, where you were next to a railroad or you're next to a major artery, people from the Shenandoah Valley would come in. they'd ship it out in barrels to the seaports in Alexandria and Georgetown. Here, I'm not sure who the big purveyor was, but probably distributed to different stores within the community. So that's the process in a nutshell. A lot of running around, a lot of heavy lifting, and this is where some of the sayings that you've probably heard all your life, keeping your nose to the grindstone. Okay, so the miller had to do a number of things. He had to listen, he had to know the sound of the stones, he had to know the sounds of the elevator systems, he had to know the sounds of the bolting chest, he had to know the sounds of every gear that was attached and powered by the water wheel. If you smelt something burning, you want to adjust those stones right away. Anybody know why? Mills burnt down all the time. Mills exploded all the time. What they didn't burn in the Civil War, a lot of these people blew out sidewalls or they didn't build it correctly. Part of this building right here is a special part. It's called the Hurst frame or husk frame. It's independent of the rest of the building because the vibrations from the stones might vibrate the back end of the wall out. And they didn't want everything else tumbling with it. They could always rebuild the back wall. But to rebuild a Hurst frame or a husk frame was very expensive, time consuming, and they'd be out of commission. Anybody have any questions? I was a miller from the time I was 17 to the time I was about 35, but I also ran a historic site. So I learned from a guy from West Virginia. He taught me all the ins and outs of it, and I did that for years at Colvin Run, and then eventually became the administrator. So I'm pretty well versed on most of the stuff. I'm helping rebuild different parts here. I'm retired, so I got a hold of Regina and said, you need somebody? And she said, yep, come on down. So I've been working on this for a few years now. And hopefully we'll have it open for the community with an operational grist mill before I die. So, any questions? Anybody have any input? Any millers out there? People that brought grain to the mill that want to speak up and add to the story?
I know you mentioned like mills burning down. You said it was because of like the flour, correct? Or the like fine grains.
The flour dust. Well, flour dust is very combustible. Okay, and just a single spark. You know, you're turning a wheel at probably it was 10 horsepower. Okay, and that water wheel, and there's no brake. Okay, you step on the brake in your car today, you're going to stop within a certain number of feet. You've got the inertia of the water wheel once it turns the momentum. You've got the inertia of the stones. Again, once the momentum speeds up, that water wheel typically produced about 10 to 12, 14 horsepower on a water wheel that was probably this size that would power this mill. But you've got all this other equipment too. You've got flywheels, you've got belts, you've got pulleys, you've got the drag of grain and flour in buckets and all kinds of other things. And so if those stones wobble and strike each other, that spark is instantaneous, trapped within that hoop, and then it goes out. So it's a very dangerous occupation. Many mills burnt down. We were lucky enough here that this stone on the end here is from Brushy Mountain. So that's fairly unique in that it's still here. They were one of the biggest producers of millstones on this East Coast. They went all over the country. The other stone that you see up on its edge is a French burr stone. Those were shipped over here as ballast in ships. They're segmented. Then they heated a band, and once the band cooled, it would hold that stone together. This stone is all one piece. So the bottom is one piece, and the top runner stone is one piece. And the way they cut grain is it's a scissor action. It cuts across, there's grooves in the stone. If you look on the back wall there, I've got 2 metal millstones, and you can see the grooves in the stone. Those stones had to be dressed on occasion. So there was a millwright that would come through, and he would dress those stones. Sometimes the millers would do it themselves, but it was tedious work. I've got a little setup there. They'd have a flour bag on the edge of the stone, and they'd use those mill picks to pick those grooves and to roughen that stone up. In the case of a French burr stone, it's a very open, porous stone, and even those were cutting edges for the grain. On the granite stone, basically it was just the grooves of the stone. Did I say anything wrong? Millers out here? Everybody with me? Any questions? Well, I want to thank you for joining us. And if you have any questions, come up to me at any time. I'll be glad to tell you. We will be opening up the next floor, we hope within the year. Once we finish the railings and get the rest of the flooring in there and make it safe. Other than that, we're trying to get a water wheel. We're hoping to raise funds for that water wheel. Your donations will be going to that. Nobody collects a salary here. I'm a volunteer, and all my woodworking is volunteer. And so we're hoping that we can get this thing within our lifetime to get it operational. Thank you all very much.
We're here today to have content put into our time capsule, and we just kind of are blessed to have the community working with us. Mitzi Mayberry Roberson at Mayberry Funeral Home donated our urn to put all our contents in, and I'll let Mitzi tell about how we went about getting the documents ready for this.
So, Regina had a lot of old documents that we have scanned, and we're going to put copies in, newspapers, articles out of books, different things. We're going to try to put those in there, the legal documents, and then just random things that are important to us, such as Regina has the key that her father used to open the mill when he was running it.
It's an old skeleton key, and my Papa Roberson used it way back in the 40s and 50s, and then Daddy used it up until the newer padlock came to be in 2020, in the year 2020.
And then we have a piece of the old siding and some flour bags that were used back in the day.
Buckwheat flour from H.A. Roberson. And my papa's name was Homer Aurelius, and then Daddy was Harry Alton, so they both had the same initials.
And then all of this got started with Regina's brother, Timmy, who is passed away. It was his dream to see the mill back in operation or usable. And he's made a little toy contraption that we're going to put in there.
Got gears.
That Timmy did. So that's in honor of Timmy. On an insulator from a pole.
And the insulator actually has a little melted area on it, so maybe the electricity got too powerful for it. We don't know. And by the markings on it, we think this is probably 100 years old, at least.
Then we have a little book that has pictures of the mill and the people working in the mill and the officers and Regina's mom and dad. Um, and then we have some other just pictures
I don't know if
of,
we take a look maybe at some of the most recent ones. The pictures that Mitzi's talking about that are in the book are pretty old, most of them, aren't they? And these are some newer ones we wanted to include of the volunteers working at the mill. Jeff and Mitzi in that one, who are both board members. And then Jeff inside doing some work on the actual gearing. And then Carolyn Shockley, who's a supporter of our project, and my mom. And then there's also Jesse, working with Jeff. Jesse's my husband. And then just some pictures of the actual railings that are going up with volunteers, and then an old picture of the flume and the water wheel, probably taken about the 1960s.
and we're going to try to encapsulate the time capsule possibly in June. And that will hopefully be around the date that her dad actually acquired the mill from his siblings and became his mill.
We do plan on every 10 years taking the time capsule out from wherever, we bury it or encapsulate it, and adding to the time capsule. So every decade we would have different things in it.
So all of this is to restore the mill to a historical place for people to come and enjoy, schools to learn, different, anybody that's interested. But that we would love donations. We have a Facebook page, Roberson Mill. We have a website. And there is periodically people here that you can drop by. We have donation boxes. You can contact any of the board members. And we're trying to get all 3 floors fixed to where you can visit the full effect of the mill.